Join me in a pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sue, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderman Cleghorn. Here. Alderman Fahey.
Here.
Alderman Donovan.
Here.
Alderman Bennett.
Here.
Alderman Eidman.
Here.
Alderman Rainey.
Here.
Alderman Prince.
Here.
Alderman Steiger.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Move to approval of tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. At this time, you may notice we have a new podium. David, I think you were going to present to us the podium.
Unfortunately, Mr. Kenny Rapp, who's the industrial tech teacher of the school, had a commitment he could not leave to be here this evening. You have a picture at your seat of the two young men, Vinny Bahaga and Gavin Amelong, who constructed this. But the industrial tech department, if you get a chance, look at it. It's got the city symbol engraved up here, and it was donated by the St. John High School Industrial Tech Department. Very nice.
Wonderful. Thank you. So thanks to Mr. Rapp and you said Vinny and Gavin?
Correct.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It looks awesome. So if you get a chance, take a peek at it. It's got our seal, of course, on the top too. So it looks wonderful. At this time, personal appearance, we have Ashley Kreider, Executive Director of the St. John Housing Authority. She's going to present the report for 2023.
Good evening. I'm going to make it pretty brief, and if you have any questions, just let me know. So pretty much what we've done over the last year, we had some delays with our original capital fund plan for 2022, kind of got pushed to 2023. And that was due to some contract having to push off. They didn't quite get us done in time. So for 2023, we were able to get 3 new roofs put on for 3 out of our 15 housing units. And then we were also able to get our road repaved. It was in well need of it. So we've got two speed bumps on it, and we're working on putting in some more as well. Our wait list management for the past year, this was my first year there, and I moved in 6 families, 2 of them being under extremely low income level. There's a couple 2 different things I've changed over this past year. Typically for HUD, we have a REAC inspection that is now changing to Inspire. So I think it was 2022, we got the results in 23 for our REAC, and we were a high performer. So we do not have to have another inspection for that until 2025. And overall HUD inspections, I've changed it from doing it once a year and evaluating everything versus doing it bi-monthly. And I only do like 1 or 2 things out of the Inspire book. And I did it like that because Inspire is a big difference from REACT, and they're very picky on a lot of things. So I'm learning it as well as the tenants are learning it. But so far, so good. That's gone very well. And that's really my main highlights of notes that I had. Any questions? Am I good?
Thank you.
You good? Thank you, Ashley. This time we'll move to the City Administrator's report.
Nothing new except what I distributed in your packets. Bring attention to item 3. Police Department will have a new exterior sign. It's being put together this week. Pick it up next week and then get it installed sometime in the month of April. I don't want to give a specific time yet on that, but it should be pretty simple to attach it to the building. It'll be on the back side where we usually put the snowflake, so that that'll be an identifier for the police department. Anything else on the report? Anybody have any questions about it?
Good. Thank you, Happy. Move to staff reports. First up, we have Assistant Police Chief Ryan Pollock.
Good evening, everybody. You guys have a copy of our monthly stats in front of you. You guys have any questions about that? Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next up, we have Steve Wilson from Alliance.
Evening, everyone. Everybody should have a copy of the report. Just touch on a few things. All park facilities are open. I think the weather's going to allow for that to continue. All of them were cleaned, disinfected, de-winterized, unlocked, opened back up. Same goes for the water fountains throughout town. Progress Parkway, we had a couple of them out there that were froze and busted over the winter. And they were drained, but they still managed to bust. So repairs have been done there as well. The electrical project at the water plant is complete. Everything is running as designed. So, real good blessing there. And then I have also met with Chip Marzuko about the installation of the EV charging stations at the Main Street bathroom facilities. And so we're going to get together in the next couple of weeks, get our schedules can line up, and he'll get his conduit ran, and we'll have to reroute some plumbing and get some retaining wall and concrete done. Anybody have anything?
Any timeline on that? The EV?
Installation on Chip end shouldn't take more than a few days. And then on our end, we'll have to build the retaining wall, reroute the sewer line, and pour the concrete. So we're looking probably a couple weeks there.
Cool.
Steve, I don't know if you've been up Chadwell, but a number of the neighbors have put up speeding, slow down signs and
Yes.
stuff.
Multiple signs.
Yes, multiple signs. I haven't heard anything, but Jason has been up there numerous times, watching for speeders, mainly around the school hours. I think we need to concentrate on getting more signs up there ourselves.
I mean, we can go through there and look. There's speed limit signs top and bottom.
Yep.
And we have dangerous curve signs ordered right now. So,
Yep.
so as soon as they come in, they'll be installed. But
Yeah.
if anyone has another idea of some signage up there, I'd be happy to entertain it.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. This time we'll open it up for public comment.
I do, I just walk up to the podium.
Come on up.
Start blathering.
You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. This is nice. My name is Carl Kinski. I live at 64 North 2nd Street. Can I move? So I feel kind of awkward being here tonight because I probably got to whine a little bit, and I probably should have whined a while back. But I want to talk a little bit about the way I believe public comments are handled and problems that I have with the way public comments have handled. I'm not talking about necessarily any recent event. I'm talking about what happened to me and my wife about a year ago, when an individual, I think you know whom, so I'm not going to beat around the bush, Robert Brownie, came in and accused me and my wife of various sundry things. And nobody here made any comment or said anything, which is fine. But what I have since learned is that you were told or believe that that is kind of a necessary course of conduct, that somehow it would infringe on somebody's free speech rights if you said something. And I've been to many public meetings, and I know you have an attorney here and he can give you capable advice. But I've been to many public meetings where people do, members of aldermen, the mayor, say things when people are making public comments, especially if the public comments are offensive, or they disagree with the public comments, or if they just want to speak their piece about the public comments. I've been to other counties' health board meetings during COVID where there was substantial input from members of a public health board responding to people's comments. And the idea that you can't speak, that you can't say something because you would be infringing on the member of the public's free speech is completely wrong. You're infringing on your own free speech. You're infringing on your ability and the necessity sometimes to speak up. And nobody spoke up. Nobody said a word. Now, to my mind, you may decide, you may have good reasons not to have said a word there. But I think, frankly, that you didn't. Because I think the accusations were beyond ridiculous. But in any event, feel free to speak. I also want to point out that when somebody at a public meeting attacks another member of the public and you do nothing about it, you are discouraging people from speaking at a public meeting. You are discouraging people from getting involved. And that is another detrimental effect. So this is not a forum, for people to attack other people, but it was a year ago. And I know there was a different person, many different people in the seats here than are now, but I really don't want to have that repeated. And one of the people here was my wife, and she didn't say anything. And the other point that I want to make is when you don't say something, you say something. Silence often speaks louder than words. So I want to talk about, the reason I'm here now is because I'm afraid that what happened then is happening now. That the same individual, again, is slandering people, including people who work here with the city. I had a hearing recently on Mr. Brownie's allegations against me. And we both represented ourselves, and I admit, it may make it sound like a confession, but I admit that I'm an attorney and he is not. But we had the hearing. And the judge found, initially, I believe, you can see from her judgment, I have copies with me, initially she said, she wrote, I found inadequate evidence as to all of Mr. Browning's allegations. But I think it's clear from the handwritten judgment that she whited that out and wrote, I found no evidence of Mr. Browning's accusations. No evidence that I tried to run him over. No evidence that my wife put some sort of sign in his yard. And what concerns me now, like I said, is that we're seeing a repeat of what happened. So at the hearing, Mr. Brownie was asking questions, and he was producing strange documents. And one of those documents was a stick figure drawing with, if I remember something, printed words attacking Mr. Brownie or attacking his preferred presidential candidate. And he asked me pointedly whether this was drawn by Dave Bova and whether I recognized the handwriting of Dave Bova on it. And I am no handwriting expert. But I know from things in Mr. Brownie's past of shots that he claims were fired at his house where cameras were conveniently left off, of instances where he claims people have done things to him in public forums where nobody's been around to see. And I believe that what he presented me with, this is just an uninformed, non-expert opinion, was basically an attempt to copy a letter that Dave Bova had sent him in that style and to draw crude stick figures. And I hope that you all feel free to say, I don't believe Mr. Bova did any of the things that Mr. Browning is alleging. Because I believe it never happened, and I believe that if you don't speak up, you're speaking, just not with words, with actions. The final thing that I want to point out is that, I don't know if you call this the public comment section or the public forum, but it's important for the public to know your opinions, whether you express them here or you express them outside the meeting. It is important. In fact, I would dare say it is your duty. We are entitled to know your opinions. If you think Dave Bova is a good and honorable man, if you think he is a polite and competent servant, then you have a duty to say so. Maybe not at this meeting, it's not on the agenda, but you have a duty to say so. And if you don't, your silence is deplorable. Mr. Brownie, at that hearing, testified that he was a member of the Hells Angels and could have me killed making a phone call. I don't believe that. But even if I thought there was a snowball's chance that Mr. Brownie had that capacity, I hope that I would have the courage to stand up to that and say my piece. And I hope you all will have that same courage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kinski.
Well, I have copies of his testimony if anybody cares to see it. See the accusations he made against other people in this community. In fact, if I could just say one more thing, kind of like the lawyer who doesn't have a time limit on his closing argument. Let me take out a copy of the judge's judgment.
I'm not sure if we need to relitigate this here at City Hall, Mayor. I'm not sure if we need to relitigate this whole issue at City Hall.
You don't. And I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking to read one final paragraph from the judge's motion.
What does this have to do with city business?
It has to do with what happened in the course of city business about a year ago. If the mayor doesn't want me to read it, I certainly won't.
Go ahead.
The court finds that many additional allegations were made against respondent and others in the St. Genevieve community by petitioner during this hearing. These caused the court to question petitioner's credibility. Thank you.
Any other public comment at this time?
A point of clarity. Do we have a policy about how we handle public comment? Somebody told me before I joined that we don't say anything, right? Public comments. Has that been custom or is that by law or what?
Generally, the advice that I provide is that the public comments are a venue for the public to make comments. And it's quite often people will bring up things such as tonight that are not on the agenda, and it's not appropriate for us to discuss, not items that are not on the agenda, but it's a valuable tool for us to get feedback from the public. And sometimes people will come to the public comment section to get information from the city, not knowing they could call, City Hall and get that sort of information. So there'll be sometimes we respond just to say, give some simple information, but it's not generally what I advise is to not have a debate. And especially if it's controversial subjects, people have a right to speak because it's a public forum. And once we make that available, we can't censor people. We can limit their time. But beyond that, you don't want to get in a situation where you're cutting them off. But it's not generally, I always advise to receive the information from public comments. It's not board comments, it's public comments. So that's primarily, I think, based upon the advice that I provide. And generally, if you're looking at Robert's Rules of Order, it's not the board's business part of the meeting. It's just for the board to be forced to listen to the constituents, whether you want to or not, so to speak. Because sometimes there will be people that will be critical of the board or the administration or people in the city, or myself.
What if, and I certainly understand that, what if somebody said something that was clearly untrue, and we've got a public forum, it goes into the minutes involved, and we don't say anything? I think that's a valid point, that it almost looks like we're tacitly approving.
It's not it doesn't create any legal liability on the part of the city to allow the public to make false statements. It's not the city's job to police that. So it's not us saying it. It's a public venue similar to anybody going out in front of the courthouse and talking to the public. So this is public facility, and we're providing a public venue, and it's not up to us to at that time to determine the truth or falsity of any allegations. It's you're allowing people to speak. Now you can have it more regulated than what you do. Some cities have adopted really stringent restrictions on the public forum, especially time. And you can limit it to 2 minutes, and you can say the problem is once you, and I think before Happy was here, I talked to Martin Toma about it. But generally in this town, it's been my experience as an attorney that the board doesn't want to limit the people that live here from coming in and say what they want to say, and then having these hard timelines. Because once you set a timeline and you enforce it on one, you have to enforce it on everybody. And the example I gave is, well, if a nice grandma came in here and wanted to talk about her sidewalks and she went on for too long, well, if we're gonna stop somebody who's controversial and we don't like, we gotta stop that nice lady talking about an issue that's important to her, because we can't regulate it based upon the content of what they're saying, whether we like it or not. We have to enforce the rules. And so there was never a consensus that I was aware of that we want to limit people from it in any meaningful way from being able to say what they want to say, because we have to enforce that against everybody. Yeah, we don't have to have public comments at all.
Mark, you mentioned something, it not being on the agenda. So is there a way, if somebody wants to come in and make a public comment and stuff, there can be?
Well, I mean, they could always contact their alderperson or the mayor and say, this is an important issue, I want you to discuss it and put it on the agenda. And then it's up to the board and the alderpersons to get something on the agenda. There's a process for that.
So that would just be an open,
Well, I mean, any one of you have been communicated by people in the public that say there's an issue that's important to us. Will you mention it?
At that time, when it's on the agenda, then we would be able to have open discussion. It's the items that just general public comments, and they're coming in talking about something that we don't know that they're talking about that we can't comment on, right?
Well, I mean, I haven't said that you can't comment.
Or shouldn't, or,
Yeah, all I'm saying is that it's a public comment section for them to address you, it's not a debate. And then if we open it up too much for these discussions, then you're going to violate the Sunshine Law. And so it runs into problems now. That's why I always, if you really get into it, I usually don't talk this much in a meeting. But when I am talking, I'm usually interrupting, saying, well, that's not on the agenda, put it on the agenda as you all know. And that comes up from time to time with public comments. Now, people could bring up stuff off agenda and there's a brief discussion about it. Usually it ends up being Happy saying, well, I'll follow up with you tomorrow. Let's talk about that, or, or somebody else from on staff. And that's okay. But if you really get into this, and certainly with regard to this matter, I don't know what would the appropriate response be anyway. So I mean, that's based upon my advice. Maybe back to your original question, is that you don't have, I think there might be an ordinance that limits it maybe to 5 minutes, or there may be something on the books, but we've never really enforced it against anyone that I recall, where we said, nope, you're done.
That's public hearing or
Public hearings are
forums.
Yeah.
As far as inviting the public to an open forum where we have said, okay, we're going to have, the time limit is this, and it
Yes.
everybody during that meeting.
Yeah, we've done that. I've been here, we've done that once.
Yeah.
And we moved it over to the Knights of the KC Hall, and it was over the vehicle parking ordinance. And then, but yeah, I think we did announce, but nobody ran even close to that time anyway. So.
Mark and Happy, a while back, I pursued this issue just to make sure, and I appreciate the advice. I think that's good advice that we get from you, Mark, but I think just setting the expectation on the agenda, and I noticed it's probably been gone for a couple meetings now, I just didn't. But I had kind of pushed for some clarification on the agenda under the public comments area, just to make sure that a person has the proper expectation when they come to voting. Was there a reason why we took that off the agenda, or?
It may be the same reason we don't have old business listed on here.
Okay, so it's an admin error, it's not intentional omission.
Right.
Okay, could we then further, could we research an ordinance to reference or anything that just kind of sets public expectation for what that time is used for?
So I think we have, it is in ordinance form, but I think it's more request people to limit it to 5 minutes, not necessarily that you're limited to 5 minutes.
Right.
We'll put that language back on there that we discussed. And
Yeah, I think there was a blurb that said, please try to limit to 5 minutes.
Okay,
that could have gotten lost in our move when we were
sure.
jostling our trying to catch up with what we had had on previous agendas, but or because we're on a different agenda back to what we were here. I'll check with the city clerk.
Did you have something you wanted to clarify there? No. Okay, I was just making sure I didn't cut you off. Okay. All right. This time we will move to tonight's consent agenda.
Motion approved.
I'll second it.
Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, take us to old business. A second reading, bill number 4606. This is an ordinance amending section 200.015, chief of police appointment, term, salary, removal.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Sue, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderwoman Clegg-Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Fahey. Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Bennett.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman. Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
We have 8 yes votes. Bill number 4606 now becomes ordinance number 4529.
Thank you. Next, we'll have a second reading of bill number 4609. This is an ordinance of the city of St. Genevieve authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Joker's Paving for the North 4th Street Drainage Paving Improvements Project. This is in an amount of $132,295.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Sue, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderwoman Claiborne.
Yes.
Alderman Fahy.
Yeah.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Bennett.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
8 yes votes, 0 no, 0 absent. Bill number 4609 now becomes ordinance number 4530.
Thank you. And this will be a second reading for bill number 4610. This is an ordinance of the city of St. Genevieve, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement between the city of St. Genevieve and the St. Genevieve Municipal Band.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Sue, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderwoman Claiborne.
Yes.
Alderman Fahy.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Bennett.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yeah.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
8 yes votes, 0 no votes, 0 absent. Bill number 4610 now becomes ordinance number 4531.
Thank you. Move on to some new business. This will be a first reading of bill number 4611. This is an ordinance approving a special use permit for Bethany Noble that will allow guest lodging at 105 North 2nd Street.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Since on the agenda, first and second reading on this, what was the reason for the second reading right away?
I believe it's because it was going to be on the first reading was going to be on the previous meeting's agenda, but did not make it on there. Because we did have a public hearing about this topic at the previous meeting. So the first meeting, the first reading was left off for a clerical error. So we were trying to expedite the process for her because this would have been when it would have normally gone up for a second reading.
Motion for a second reading.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for a second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Wasn't her fault.
Any opposed to a second reading? Okay. This will be a second reading of bill number 4611. This is an ordinance approving a special use permit for Bethany Noble that will allow guest lodging at 105 North 2nd Street.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Sue, will you do a roll call, please?
Alderwoman Claiborne.
Yes.
Alderman Fahy.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Bennett.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
8 yes votes, 0 no, 0 absent. Bill number 4611 now becomes ordinance number 4532.
Thank you. Take us to a first reading of bill number 4612. This is an ordinance approving a contract for in-car and integrated body cameras from Axon Enterprise Incorporated for the purchase and installation of 10 body cameras and 9 in-car camera systems in an amount not to exceed $126,213.80 over a 60-month contract for the St. Genevieve Police Department.
I had one question about that. With 11 officers and only 10 cameras,
So the chief and lieutenant will not be wearing cameras. And you have an extra camera for your part-time person. And then the rest is to get back in the vehicles. You have the 9 vehicles to put it in.
motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right. Motion for a second reading.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for a second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Second reading of bill number 4612. This is an ordinance approving a contract for in-car and integrated body cameras from Axon Enterprise Incorporated for the purchase and installation of 10 body cameras and 9 in-car camera systems in an amount not to exceed $126,213.80 over a 60-month contract for the St. Genevieve Police Department.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Sue, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderwoman Claiborne.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Bennett,
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger,
Yes.
Alderman Prince,
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
8 yes votes, 0 no votes, 0 absent. Bill number 4612 now becomes ordinance number 4533.
Thank you. Take us to a first reading of Bill number 4613. This is an ordinance of the City of St. Genevieve authorizing the city administrator to enter into a customer service agreement with Republic Services for trash service.
Discussion.
Yes.
Did we put all these different buildings that they service together in one contract? We didn't go separately?
They're separate contracts. I put one in there as an example.
I mean, all locations that they're going to service, we
Right, there's
got a
five.
bid for just from one.
So if you look at the bid sheet, that shows you the different locations, so they'll all be listed as a separate individual contract.
We did that for what reason?
That was how they submitted.
But we're having all 5 locations, I think, serviced
Yes,
under one contract?
yes. So that's the total is $445. So individually, one may be $95, one may be $75, another's $105, et cetera. So what we do is, well, for the ordinance, I wanted to put the total amount of what that cost will be per month. So we're looking at probably a $350 to $400 savings.
That's weird how that works. Okay. I think that answers my question. Thank you.
Motion to approve?
Who had the second? Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Take us to a first reading of Bill number 4614. This is an ordinance approving a budget amendment to the City of St. Genevieve for the fiscal year 2024 budget relating to various revenue and expenditure increases.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any other business to discuss at this time?
Couple questions.
Yep.
Getting further on the cemetery issue with the mausoleum.
And I'm gonna meet with, Burn Foreman Contracting tomorrow to see what their estimate on that cost might be.
And a question on any pending lawsuits and how we handle those in the city. Are we involved in any pending litigation or lawsuits, and how is that information passed out to the board?
So nothing has changed. We are in pending lawsuits. I would ask if we go into closed session for something along
I'm
those
not
lines.
asking the details, but I'm just asking.
Right. So, yes, we are in pending litigation for 2 or 3 locations of issues. And we're working with our insurance companies that cover us for any of those accidents that happen. And you go through the legal process and it takes a while.
How do we, is the board made aware of those lawsuits, and kind of what's our policy for getting that information? Because I got a question about it, and I don't have an answer, so one, makes me look like I don't know what's going on, or that I'm trying to hide stuff. So I'd like to know what our policy is for pending litigation or lawsuits, and how that information is going out to board members.
So we've had discussion in closed sessions, in work sessions. So I usually don't bring it to a board session. They probably haven't done it since you've been back on the board, because nothing has really happened during those lawsuits. If you would like an update, every now and then we can put that on my schedule and make sure to include that.
Maybe quarterly, maybe give an update on where we're at on any pending ones.
Yeah. I will tell you that we probably won't have much to say during most of them because of the machinations of getting through the court system. But sure.
Quarterly, let's hope, but yeah, I understand that things move slow.
And if you have an individual question, call me.
Yeah.
And I can explain what's going on.
Well, I'm going to be in the meeting tonight, so I didn't need the details, but I just wanted to kind
fair
of know what our policy was.
Because mostly it's an administrative, it's not going to be resolved by the board. It's going to be resolved either through the court system, or if it is going to be resolved by the board, it will then be brought to you as here is what our issue is.
I mean, if we settle, I mean, it comes before the board if we have to settle. So.
Right.
That's what we know about this is going on. Or update on. Maybe when we have new boards, maybe we need to update new boards, pending or ongoing litigation. When a new board member or new board takes, seat, that we probably should have like an updated, meeting for them to keep them up to date on what's going on.
Which makes sense, except for the fact that we're dumping a bunch of information on new board members. So again, it's, you weigh what you want.
We get paid every month.
Okay.
I don't like to get blindsided.
Well, and so we won't have a change in this next round, but we'll do that right after the election and update everybody.
Thank you.
Any other discussion at this time? Okay, with that, we will adjourn. Move to approval of tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Just one item on the agenda tonight, and that is the financing for street repairs / extensions.
The mayor and I have been in conversation with Ed McElhinney on emails, and that's where we got this information. It was emailed to us for you to review. We're looking at, if you want to put an item on the ballot for August, you have to have it in by the end of May. But we're looking at, our need is to probably figure this out before the end of April. Eddie can come back one more time. We'll have probably at the next meeting what the ballot language would look like. What you're deciding at this point is, are we going to go for the larger amount? Are we going to go for the no tax increase amount? You've got a breakdown in front of you. I'll get to the question in a second. So on the grid, it looks like this. Kind of give you a breakdown of what we are, what they looked at in the way of what we can request and what we're allowed to have as debt as a city. So our assessed valuation is over 79 million. Maximum percentage allowed by law is 20%. So the maximum size is about 16 million. The new geo issue size is 6.5 is what we've looked at. 10 million is what we've talked about, because that would give us more money to do more streets. The debt service for both now that's a lease purchase, and for the large bond, the general obligation bond, $814,000, $814,110 available from city funds. We have at this point is $600,000. That's what we've come up with internally. Funds needed to pay for additional geo bonds is $214,000. As you can tell, the difference between 814 and 600,000. So to achieve that $214,110, you would need to request 27 cents per $100 of assessed valuation to be able to have that money available to pay off the general obligation bond. Medium list price for a home, $199,000. Assessed valuation about took 37, almost 38,000. Yearly tax for that general size home is going to be $102.55. So is that understandable? Any questions on that?
How many questions you want?
Oh, well, I mean, yeah. And just remember, you're not talking to the expert.
Right.
But I can answer what I can.
So this would be a tax that would be collected in year 2024 or at the end of 2024?
I think I don't know if it would be 2024. I think if you get it on in August, yes. If you got it in November, no.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so this tax would be for a term of 20 years?
Yes.
I'm sorry, the first question, it'd be on 25 tax? It would
It'd be on 24s because you would do it in August. If you did it in November, you would not. Yeah, so as you can tell on the breakdown of what the payments would be, we're out to 2044 for those payments.
So basically, as we collect this tax for 20 years, even though we wouldn't be doing the project all at once, that's taken in that time of breaking those streets down over a number of years.
Yeah, yeah, because I gave you a breakdown of just a recommendation, but nothing technical of what those years would be, because I think at some point you can only do so much with so many contractors. Now, from what I'm hearing from other cities, they've gotten some better bids on some street projects they've done recently. So that bodes well that we may be able to do more than what I'm anticipating on this based on past experience. I'd say, the last 3 or 4 years, but I don't know how
I
that's
mean, in
going to
theory,
work.
we could do all the construction in 1 year if we wanted to have 7 contractors and hundreds of, feet out, yeah.
But then you would have everything break at the same time. And then yeah. So we've also talked about not pulling that money immediately out and as we go along, using it as we need it, not necessarily, so you're not paying interest on that then as well. But yes, the 27 cents would start in 2024.
Still a lot of questions. It doesn't seem as simple as the graph shows, but
I mean, this is the breakdown of what you're gonna, because you're assuming when you do this type of breakdown, you're starting with the main amount and then working your way through all the calculations.
So theoretically, I mean, we got basically 2 options ahead of us, whether we do a no tax increase issue or a tax increase issue, correct?
Right.
Could technically both of them go on the ballot? And if the bigger one prevails, we could go with that one, and if the other one, well, the other one, we wouldn't need voter approval, would we?
Right.
Well,
Oh,
we-
yeah,
no,
yeah,
we
you
do.
would, yeah.
Both of them.
I don't know if you can put both questions on the ballot. I think you have to decide what you're gonna ask the voters to do. But
I mean,
I don't know. I'll ask on that.
if they both won, then it would be up to us to decide, but if only one of them won out of the 2 issues, then
I would say
I
that you
don't-
would
yeah,
put out the bond issue for the tax increase, and if that fails, then follow that up the next election with a no bond, no tax increase bond.
That's true.
And then do what we can do, like at that point, at least we've shot our shot. And if it doesn't pass. then
It's
go
gonna
back
be
with
really
it.
hard to educate, to your point, to
Yeah.
educate them between the 6.5 million and 10 million, between no tax on a simple ballot, because a lot of people aren't gonna study it prior to. They'll read the ballot, maybe, the ballot language, but you know how those are, in a short paragraph, you're supposed to explain how this is gonna get funded and.
And we'll have tax ballot language at the next meeting. So you can kind of look at that and, yeah.
It's, Eddie's company, does he help you draft some of that, or what
Yeah.
does that count?
No, well, it'll be Gilmore Bell. Mark Spikerman will put that together. But that's part of what we're paying for through McLean. So you also have to keep in mind that we have a lease purchase for water sewer on what we're intending on doing, and then you have the streets. So you have 2 different things that you'll be, having to pay for. And they will not, the water does not come out of the general obligation fund. That's just the lease purchase.
But they're both covered under the calculations that you gave us as part of the
Yeah.
100,000.
Yeah, I believe you factored
Yeah, on
in
page 3.
both debt service, I think, is included on
Yeah.
page 3.
Yeah, so the idea was that after the 10 years on the lease purchase, you would then use that money to help pay off the rest of the GO bond.
so having these water and sewer projects and stuff, are these in addition to planned already water and sewer projects, or are these,
I mean, these are extras beyond our consolidated plan at this point.
right? So these are basically taking care of those utilities under the streets we're going to,
No, that's for this subdivision,
Yeah.
the proposed subdivision plan.
So we talked about that, and it would be the same thing. We'd have to do a lease purchase on the streets that would need to have water sewer replaced.
So that these figures would go up.
Yeah. Yeah, depending upon which street you do.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. So if we were gonna do what's in international subdivision, I don't know if we have any of those streets. I think all the water and sewer is in this, it's in the, yeah, I'm gonna speak out of turn. Anyway, it would be a major construction if we would have to, yeah, we would have to make improvements to those. I think they're in the yards, but I don't remember. But like Leahy, I know Leahy's has water line in the streets and we'd have to.
Steve said no.
Oh, okay. Is that in the streets?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Great.
There are yards to work with, yeah.
So, yeah. Sidewalks and stormwater are included, I'm sorry, sidewalks and stormwater are included, but not utilities. Yes, sir.
But the GO bond would allow us to do water and sewer with that money.
No.
It's only for street repairs?
Only for street, sewer, and water. I'm sorry, only for street, storm sewer, and sidewalks. Sorry.
So happy to put that on the ballot. I mean, are we gonna have to get specific and say which streets and stuff are gonna be?
You wouldn't put that on the ballot, but you do that in your information that you send out and get out there to the newspaper, the radio station, if you're gonna do any mailings, whatever organization you put together, it's gonna go door to door. That's where you're saying, here's our plan on these streets and this is when we're gonna put them in.
And I would assume we would prioritize based on the streets that we can do without having to do major infrastructure on the front end. I mean, not to say that those don't need to be done also, but.
I think you're gonna have to make that choice because some of those streets are the ones that are the worst that need to be replaced as soon as possible. Yeah.
Eric, you made that comment
That's all right.
because that was your preference?
Yes.
Or some other?
I mean, if we're trying to maximize the dollars that we're going to be able to get in this proposal,
That should be
more of those projects we can do without.
Having to cut the street back up.
But not considering
That was part of the
scenario.
last year's
We need to lay a proper
Oh, there's
space.
another, oh, there.
Right.
Because we have some of those on there where
Get
that
it at the end.
probably should be priority.
Idea so we can come up with a rough idea on what those would be.
But I don't think there's too many complete rebuilds, though.
Anything in international subdivision is a complete rebuild.
Infrastructure that would be.
Anything in international has deteriorated to where it's only 2 inches on dirt and it's gonna have to be done to, a full.
Audubon coming from some public comment that we've received.
Yeah.
So it's Audubon, LaRose, Scott, and Austin. Yeah, so on the last page, you should have a rough idea of what the schedule I put in there based on what we consider to be the most, the streets that need to be looked at soonest. And then based on the 25-year plan or 20-year plan that we came up with, that we didn't adopt, but it's still, it still can be utilized from Cochrane. That's when we start in 2029, going through these streets or street groups to start replacing, again, until we run out of money.
What exactly is the plan for Austin and LaRose and Scott and Audubon? Are they going to be the same width, or is that cutting them down to our standard width, or are they going to stay as wide as they are?
It's based on the square footage existing.
Existing.
Yeah, so that's where that number comes from. If you're gonna cut them down, what are you doing with the edges then? Are we gonna put sidewalks in? There's a cost.
Well, that's the only question I had been asked from somebody over there, is if they were gonna do like they did at Blaine, and because they narrowed that street down considerably to make it, I guess, up to our code or down to our code, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And they didn't want that to happen over there because they would lose their parking, just like the Blaine residents did.
Right. No, this is, the square footage is based on what's existing.
Okay.
So you might lose a little bit if you put curbing in, but it wouldn't be that, wouldn't be significant.
I don't think we have a choice. I mean, you look at this list and it's just 10 million is not enough. So, I mean, there's so many streets that you go down and it's like,
So my understanding in our discussions with Ed McCliney, he'd like to more or less have a path buttoned up by our second meeting in April. Is that your understanding as well?
Yep.
Then to start work on preparing for the ballot, getting everything filed. So we have a little time, but it could be worth having a conversation with some constituents to maybe take the temperature on these.
Well, in some aspects, we're doing that with putting it on the ballot.
Well, 100%, but I mean, we have two paths that we can pursue.
Yeah.
So it could be worth discussing both paths. The idea of submitting one to see if it passes in August and then coming back around in November to try another, I mean, it's fine. At that point, all we're losing is time.
Would we have enough time between August and put that second one on if it fails in August?
Yeah, you run out of time for the November ballot. I think that's June or July.
That's what I'm saying. Are we gonna have to,
Probably put it off till April. If it doesn't pass in August.
you don't have the option to take it back off the ballot if we went ahead and put in for the one in August, put in for the one in November, and then pull it off in November if it won in August?
I think you have to do that a certain amount of time before the election. I think we passed that because they are tight. They're closer together than, let's say, the April, August. I don't know enough about it to give you a correct answer.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, Mayor. I mean, I think we certainly need the constituents' feedback, but I mean, that's what all of us have consistently gotten. I mean, even long before my time on board that's the consistent complaint from our constituents is the shape of our streets. So
Sure.
I think we've gotten feedback that's a significant concern.
Sure, and I agree with you 100%. I think the issue to discuss is, do they want a tax levy as a result?
And they can vote on it.
It's easy to, I agree with every single, when you look at this list, it's exhaustive, but you're staring it in the face every day. So I completely agree. I think it's more or less taking the temperature on it. They're okay with the tax increase. I understand the ballot is going to give us the information, but in the interest of time, maybe trying to understand their thoughts before putting it on the ballot wouldn't be the worst idea, just to get an idea.
Is that a town hall meeting or is that?
I'd like to see that. I really would.
I mean, I don't know that gets us if we have 15 people that are for it and 15
I was
people
gonna say
against
20
it, I
people
don't know.
might show up, but
Right.
it's still, that doesn't give you a false.
Yeah, it doesn't give you.
Well, and the other, as far as the information goes, obviously it's here for our residents to see right now, right? I mean, the discussion's happening in the open so that, we can, relay the facts as far as there's two options here. I mean, one is a no tax increase option, which addresses maybe 60% of the areas of concern as we see them right now, as they're bid out currently. But it doesn't address everything. And now this list is just going to continue to roll around, right? So it's
The no tax increase still includes the addition, the
Both ballot measures would include the expansion and then addressing the existing. It's just how much of the existing are we going to be able to address? So the difference is, I mean, obviously, if you're looking at the list and you live on one of these streets, I think that may be your answer. But will the residents of some of the other ones, that's somewhat of the danger, I guess, of publishing it.
Yeah.
But at some point, transparency is probably prudent. So
In response to Eric and Joe's point, I would eagerly look forward to 20 passionate people. That if we only have 20 people and they show up with some zeal on that topic, and then they go and evangelize that to their neighbors and friends in the community, I think that's a plus for us.
But I think that would have to be done quickly if they're needing an answer by the end of April.
You're not wrong.
well, and at some point, it is going to be up to everyone at this, table, minus Christie.
So-
But it's going to be up to us to decide the path forward that we feel is going to best suit the residents
Is
and
there
future residents.
any way another option, if we were to do the no tax increase bond issue for just the top part of those projects, could we still do a tax increase just on the second part of those to get those done separate from the big one?
So you're asking for a second.
Well, I mean,
General
then that would be
obligation.
less of a tax levy. That might be a better sell than trying to do a tax levy for the full amount.
It would be the same.
Yeah,
Because
our
you-
levy is just, it's encompassing the difference between the two.
Still gonna be at
Proposal.
Okay, so that's only covering the addition, not, okay.
Correct.
But to some extent, if we're adding 230 rooftops, then the median tax that's gonna generate here in the 20 years should be more substantial than are we just estimating our current rooftops?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
it would generate some extra, maybe not a substantial amount, but.
And after 5 years, these bonds usually have a call, so you can pay them off sooner. So if we would get to that point, that'd be the best thing to do. Or if finance rates are high and they come down, we can refinance it and bring that cost down. But we're gonna go based on what we know currently, and that's where these numbers come from. I must apologize. I did get something from Eddie McGliney. So the language is, shall the city of St. Genevieve issue its general obligation bonds in the amount of whatever that number is now, you decide on, for the purpose of improving and repairing the streets of the city, including making related stormwater control improvements. If, and this is not part of the language, if you want water sewer improvements, a separate question would be required. So that's the revenue bond as opposed to the general obligation bond.
Maybe the one issue I have even with this top, and we do have an engineer's estimate now, is Ninth Street. I mean, that road is heavily traveled with all of the school. And now with the early childhood development, we're going to increase traffic up there on one of the worst roads in town. And we know what that estimate is $500,000.
Right.
So why do we continue to keep leaving that out?
There's no.
I just have the engineering in progress. I show it as a 2025 construction project. So Market to Ridgeway, that's 9th Street, I just don't have the cost yet because we haven't got a full engineering cost on it yet, but it's included in that group.
Right, but shouldn't we at least put a dollar amount in there?
Yeah, we can do that. I don't know what difference it makes overall because we're looking at one number or another number. It's going to be included with this group. So you're going to raise it to 2 million for the most needed. And that may have to be cut back depending upon how much we have available after what we get out at Progress Parkway.
Does that answer your question?
Well, I guess it does. It's just gonna skew the numbers down here and stuff because we've committed to the money for the engineering. The engineering is in process. We have a preliminary drawing, and we have a preliminary figure. So it's far ahead of most of these other streets, in my opinion. But I just don't want it to get left off because we're not including, because it is the most expensive street there on the top list.
Right. I'll check with their engineer and see if I can get a final estimate of what he thinks it costs. I'll put it in there. But I mean, it's listed with the first of the streets in 2025.
So what decision do you need from us tonight? Or do you?
No, I think this is mainly education. You need to think about what you want. I mean, if everybody tonight said we want to go with the tax issue, then we would move forward with that. But if you want to think about it a little bit, we can come back next month. We can either have Eddie come the first meeting or the second meeting. If you want to finalize the questions with McGliney before we get the attorneys to draft the language and get all that put together.
You know, he's very informative, and I know there were several members that weren't here for that meeting and stuff. I think having him here soon would be a positive.
And he's open to either date.
Can you go back to that ballot language for adding water and sewer onto that?
He doesn't give me specific language on that, and I think that would be the discussion we'd want to have with him. But it's just, if water and sewer improvements are needed, a separate question would have to be requested or be required. Otherwise, we are going to have to look at rate increases for water sewer. So we'll be going out for an RFQ at some point, because due to this last go-round that we went through with the audit, we saw we were coming in with revenues less than expenses. So we have to consider that as part of what all of this is also going to require.
But I think there was more on the water side you'd said, wasn't it? That we were coming in shorter
Yep.
than.
Yeah, it was like 25,000 short on the water. Sewer was in good shape, but again, they're connected.
Right. But are you just talking about reserves, or are you talking about actual income compared to expenses?
Actual income, right, actual revenues compared to the expenses, no.
So is our reserves where they should be?
No. That's why we're not doing any water project or water main projects this year. We're trying to build that back up.
And how did we get that way?
Because we've done a number of projects the last 3 or 4 years on areas that needed to be improved. And with the increase in costs because of inflation, I think it just kicked our butts. We let it go too long without looking at trying to make a change, trying to make a rate change. I know the board has always been hesitant in just the 2% that we ask for every year. So coming back and doing a rate study and asking for more, we felt would be difficult, and we didn't want to put the board in that position. But now it's proof.
The responsibility of an alderman would be, one, is to represent your constituents. And my feeling that most constituents would want nice streets and not have an increase in taxes. That's kind of the way of doing things. But in a leadership role where we're looking, where does this community want to be 5, 10, 15 years from now? And have a new subdivision that is well cared for, have as many good streets in town as we could afford. I think we would come out and say, we need to do it right, which is to get the tax, put it on the ballot and get a tax increase. But instead of sitting around like at the public forum where we just sit and stare at people and don't ask any questions, then we would have to be the leaders in the community telling why this is a good deal. If we have a town hall, it was because we have voted and understand as a group, we need good streets. That is the future of our town, trying to attract more people to come here for our own residents driving around. Yes, it's going to cost money, but we're going to have a better town for it. We have to sell it. It goes to the ballot. We get voted down, well, we'd have to live with the results, but we would at least not be neutral and would put forward a progressive agenda with some increase in taxes to make this better. I think the nickel and dime it and just keep patching and doing all of it, it's the slow spiral of going the wrong way.
I'm willing to put my head out there for $100 of increased taxes for a $200,000 excess house. To get to that. I mean, 10 million is not enough, guys. We all know that. This $10 million number is not enough. We're still just only getting close to where we need to be.
Halfway.
Maybe. Whatever the number is, you're right. Yeah.
And it's also, I mean, I know that this goes without saying, but I'm gonna say it, we're dedicating the street funds that we would have used for these other streets for the next 20 years. So there's no other projects without going to another tax increase to do any additional projects other than what we're listing here.
Well, I think the hope is that also the tax base broadens over that time as well. So, that's the goal. I mean, that is the goal, other than providing rooftops, yes.
Providing rooftop is in the absence of any real retail sales growth here, our taxes are what they are. I mean,
sure.
Until we have some economic development and some corporations or retail sales that are willing to come in here and raise up that tax base, then.
And some of them won't come until they get the roof.
Chicken and egg.
And with nice streets.
Yeah.
And Alderman Donovan, just to clarify, so in the no tax increase proposal, there's 3.6 million dedicated. So when you're looking at your sheet here, your priority sheet, and just in general, right? So that 3.6 is obviously encompassing more than that top section.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify because I think
the prior Parkway.
That's in addition. So the no tax increase was 3.6 million to dedicate towards that. Knowing if we're speculating that 9th Street may cost 500,000, that would be encompassed in that 3.6. So you're moving down that list into that bottom tier, that bottom grouping, hopefully, right?
Right. I just didn't want to
I just wanted to clarify, just if we're looking at it, because I think the way the list breaks out, it would lead you to believe, well, this is the grouping that would be included in that, and this would be the grouping that was included in that. But it's more or less going down the list. Happy's done a nice job here of kind of putting where, as far as the year that we're hoping to complete that project, and that's more or less your prioritization of it. Would that be accurate? So I just wanted to clarify there as we're looking at it. So it doesn't limit us to that top grouping. It does,
right.
It's going to flow down that chart in some fashion. Now, once you get beyond that top grouping, obviously that's, we're looking 5 years down the road with it, but that might be the case regardless of how we attack the projects.
Right.
But this construction schedule changes if we pass the bond.
No, this is based on the bond.
The prioritization of it,
Yeah, on the right hand side.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's based on the bond because you would not be able to afford the amount of repaving that it would require each year to do those projects. So that's above and beyond what we would normally be able to do. And it's a rough idea. You had asked to kind of have what would the schedule look like? That's it. And that's just the beginning and the start of how we would try to prioritize it. We could maybe add more streets every year, but we don't want to do everything at the same time because you don't want to have everything break down at the same time. But we can add more on there. But I want to break it out into what normally looks like what we would do in a year, more than what we normally do, but what we could do in a year. For each year, I should say.
Happy, is there a fair comparison out there that, that we could look at and stuff? I mean, we've got other towns around us that are bigger, smaller, but, somewhere within our tax base, is there somebody we can compare our rates to and stuff to try to reiterate the fact that we are in line with the rates that we charge for water or sewer or any of our other services.
And that's what the rate study would show us. Yeah, I mean, are you worried just about, like, just the water sewer rates? Are you worried about the taxes that we charge or
Well-
the sales tax?
All the above.
Yeah. So we know we have one of the higher sales tax amounts in this area. But if are we just looking at towns around 5,000? Are we looking at towns in our vicinity? I mean, how far off or how far do you want us to look for those numbers?
Well, that's the hard comparison, but I was talking about in our own tax funds, because there could be towns of 5,000 people out there that have a whole bunch of retail tax or manufacturing or something more than what we do, so that comparison of just population might not be fair, but just looking for some way to
Justify our tax rate compared to others.
So you're looking at places like Fredericktown and not Town and Country or maybe Deloge.
Fredericktown has a Walmart.
Yeah. Yeah. So does Deloge. I mean,
Inside city limits?
That's-
Is it?
yeah, so you'll have a little different income base.
So let's Google towns that don't have a Walmart. 1,000 people, we'll compare ourselves to that.
Is there any others?
One result.
Okay, so plan forward from here, I guess, come armed with questions and maybe be prepared at the next meeting to decide which path we'd like to
Is there
pursue.
anybody that's not willing to pull the trigger on putting in a tax increase?
Besides Alderman Rainey.
No, I mean,
I'm in favor of that option myself, but
I think we need to go, so you'll get a yes from me.
me too.
Me too.
Me too.
Okay,
Okay, so
there you go.
April 11th.
Somebody's got to take the steps.
Yeah. And again, if we put it out there and it fails, I mean, at least it's still, I mean, we're not making this unilaterally. It's still gonna be a vote of the people, so.
He would be here. But we can't be passive in it and
No.
just leave it to them. We have to educate them and tell them why it's the best deal for the future of our town.
Town hall probably seems like a good way to educate, answer any lingering questions. I mean, and there should be questions, and I hope that we have plenty of them.
Word by word.
You put it on an agenda item
Right.
to have public comments about,
Well, do you want to do a separate event?
I don't think we need to, we got city council meetings.
We've tried that on many topics before, and they're just not very well attended.
I can have a separate agenda item at a regular city council meeting and have a public hearing during the meeting and
Or public forum.
public forum, or public hearing or public forum.
Well, I think this will be after we state our intention and finalize that, so sometime between the end of May and the election. Good. Okay.
So we'd ask people to come and give their opinion, but our mind's gonna end up what we're gonna do.
Well,
Well, we're gonna have
it
to,
would be to educate them.
yeah, it's gonna be,
So at that point, we would have already pulled the trigger and had it on the.
So they're coming to give their opinion and we have to convince them why.
well, I think it's more or less to provide information. I think the information, we've seen how that can spread, misinformation can spread, correct? So I think the idea is
The
to,
city council has unanimously recommended that we go ahead as a community and approve this bond deal. We're gonna have a meeting to tell you why that is. It's not, we're neutral on this thing once you come in and tell us what you think you want to do.
Yes.
and depending, I mean, if you leave it hanging in the balance, I think, determining the path, I think you are going to open yourself up to
Yeah, I think
100 people show up, you're going to have 100 different opinions. but I think more of an informational question and answer session, I think is
But I think all of
more
it,
than ideal.
it's far more effective if all of us have bought in, and as a group, we think this, we know the arguments, we know why we think it's the right thing to do, and then it's our job to convince our constituents, ward by
Just
ward.
educate our constituents.
Yeah. And I mean, it can't necessarily be used to convince them. It can be used to educate. Our goal of that town hall or that time set aside at a meeting, a future meeting would be to educate, to inform. It's not to sway opinion or sway votes. It's to inform. So we've been very transparent during this process. Obviously, we're more or less required to be, right? But I think getting the information, and we will have plenty of data, and we'll have, I think it's probably prudent we get that number filled in by that. But other than that, just providing the data, providing the information that we have in our plan, having a detailed plan. I think if they know how we're going to attack these projects, I think that will be important.
And I think at that time, we should have photographs of the streets that we're looking at. Show the need for.
We could do a tour.
Yeah.
We could do a bus tour.
But we should do
What do
a
you think?
I think at that point, you may be exceeding what a city should do.
Debbie, did you attend?
Well, Christy won't be on the board, so she could lead the
I
tour.
would go as a constituent.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Happy, did you attend that public forum that the county put on here several months ago on Progress Parkway? That was done in pretty good form. A couple local politicians, and there was a couple Senate bills that were talked about, but it was a good place to have it, and a lot of people attended.
It's a possibility.
Is that the one that veered off topic for a stretch?
Yes.
Yeah. And we can finalize and fine tune how we want to do that. That's one thing we do have a little bit of time. I think the consensus of the group unanimously was to pursue that. I think we got a clear path. Let's get that in place. I think the pictures is a good idea. I think that's a
One
good
thing
thought.
about listing the streets that are going to be done, you're going to have attention to haves and the have-nots. My streets aren't getting paid, but how am I going to vote for this? Then we should keep 2 streets unnamed that we will pull out of a hat. Afterwards, every street is possibly going to get better by this.
Lottery.
I wish Mark was here to hear that.
I mean, Pat, I think convincing is going to take place between neighbors over the backyard fence. I think we just put the data out there.
Now, we can't spend money to convince people, but I mean, we can give our opinion and.
You can, as elected officials, you can get out and talk to folks and be convincing. What we try to avoid now is spending money. We don't want to spend city money to convince, say, vote yes for this. We want to just
Start with grassroots coalition and chip in a little money and run some ads and do things as a separate grassroots entity.
Right.
Well, and the IDC would probably assist in that regard too.
You would think the chamber might be interested.
I would think the chamber would be interested.
Pushing this, I don't want to speak for them, but they would potentially be.
All avenues that, would potentially be available.
Yeah, so then you're under the political committee type of requirements from the state. If you create a group like that, but you can get out and say, vote yes. That's what that group can do. We try to avoid, we can do some, again, the education part. And there's been some new, I think there's, some new decisions that kind of allow the city to do more of, trying to promote it. But you're not trying to promote the yes part. I think that's the individuals that need to promote the yes part. And a committee that does that.
Any other thoughts on the topic while we're here? Try to extend this longer since this is Alderwoman Cleghorn's last work session.
Wow. Is it really?
It is.
Next week, the election.
Can't you see the tears?
I think that's good. We're still going.
I mean, it's gonna be tough. I mean, we know that inflation's high, people are already, they're taxed. That's gonna be a hard spell, so.
You will lose people at tax increase.
Yeah.
I mean, and that, but,
But once you do, they've spoken, and,
I mean, sure,
I mean, that's who pays the bills, so.
correct. Okay. All right, so next meeting we'll have Ed here. It'll be April 11th. Any other topics to bring up?
Don't forget Tuesday's election day, come out,
Exercise your right to vote.
Can you, so how are, election day gonna be held now here in New City Hall?
They'll be coming in through the back entrance and there will be no access through the.
So that door will be closed or we're locked, and so they'll be in here for,
Okay. Okay, with that, we will adjourn.